Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Uh, this is not a technical session, so I just want to make it clear before we start. We all are technical people, but this session is more about the business aspects of Hadoop, that how does it implicates in enterprises. So again, my name is Santosh Jha, and my company name is Ajixa, but here we are not going to talk about company, it's more about cost of ownership. That and how does these things go, Steve, you know? How does it move forward? Okay. So, Steve, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Steve Ackley with Altascale. I don't know if this is on.
No.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Steve Ackley with Altascale. So I'm going to take part 2.
Okay. And we will keep the interaction going, means like if you have a question, just to stop. These presentations will be available, and we are also available any type of questions you have, or and if you want the spreadsheet that what we have used to calculate the TCO, then just write an email to us, either to me or to Steve, and we'll be happy to send those calculator to you. Okay, so let's start with the TCO. Okay, the reason I use the word estimating, because in last 30 years or so I've been working, it is very hard to find total cost of ownership. How do you define? Because any technology or anything we do has its implications. Some are direct, some are indirect, right? And especially in the corporate world where we work, these interactions are many times, totally not visible to you. You don't know, right? An example will be that one time I was leading a project at HP to implement global PeopleSoft. We didn't know the cost of that till after 10 years or so. Right. And so estimating TCO is only an effort that you can look at it on a broader basis and see that the best you can make out of it. Right? But the idea here, what I wanted to present, is that this is an important part of making a technology successful. Right? Various technologies comes through, and we try to implement them. We don't understand their implications inside the business process, right? You can take Java technology, you can take SQL technology, you can take database technology, any technology. Same way, Hadoop as a technology is definitely helpful, but how does it goes inside the business process? That's something that people have started taking, care of, right? So in this process, that's what we will try to do, right? And what I've tried to show the picture here is that it's like kind of an iceberg, that most of the time TCO things are not visible to you. So you have to find out that what is that the portion that is not visible to me, right? Okay, this is not something that unknown to any one of you. I think all of you knows that from bare metal to cloud, you can implement Hadoop anyway. You will find the vendors in all these space or somewhere in between, right? And what we have tried to do is that if you look at it, we have listed some of the vendors in terms of on-premise, appliance, hosting, and Hadoop as a service, right? And again, these are sample vendors. We don't have any, recommendations on one versus another. It is just that how do they fall, right? So nothing much here. Now, if you look at the categories, this is where you will start seeing is that your cost comes out. For example, that you wanted to implement Hadoop for the customer service, work, and you want to reduce the cost of ownership for owning a call. And that was the call, session just before us, right? In that case, the type of cost which will come to you will be manifold. And then you have to kind of think about these buckets. And so I have tried to list it out these buckets that, yeah, communication cost. If you are putting a, like bare metal, how you design your network will drive that how you are going to move your data, right? It means like if you are designing your Hadoop cluster and you didn't pay attention to your network design, then definitely that is going to come back and bite you, right? But there is a cost to those, right? And so you have to kind of look at it that if I am going to move those data in a specific pattern at the network, what is going to be the cost to me? Similarly, some of other things listed here, you can see the implementation cost. Training is another area which you all are finding it, is that getting the Hadoop people or trained Hadoop people is very hard, right? Because again, somebody might have gone through some classes, doesn't mean that they're really trained at it, right? And so what is that cost of that which will come to? What kind of management cost of those hardwares will it entail you? Because you might buy bare metal today, but when these hardwares are put onto the old, like suppose you have a data center and HP product has, that TVC Unicenter or HP OpenView for monitoring your part, does these things fit into it? If it doesn't fit into it, then what is going to be a cost for you to have these things monitored, structured, and managed, right? So your decisions that how you are going to put these things is going to be that how cool-headed you are. You are taking the emotions out of your technology, and you are trying to sit in and say that how using this technology is going to help me to achieve a efficiency in my business process, right? Because for companies, only three things, right? Companies should invest, or company invest only when it changes the employee productivity, or it changes the the revenue that it can generate more, or they feel that they are going to get out of the business, right? So these are the drivers at the very high level that company look at it to see and implement newer technology. So if you are going to bring this Hadoop and you want to be the change manager inside your company to put together this technology, then you should be the persons to take a step back, look at this whole business process of your enterprise and say that, no, here are the real cost of these things. And once your, management, executive, C-level, whatever you call that, they understand that you are having a better view of these things, they will support your implementations much better. Because the worst thing happens in a technology implementation is that unknown factor. And what you are doing with this approach is that you are bringing that unknown to more known. You will not know everything, but you will know many things. Again, these are all inside the spreadsheet. So if any one of you want it, just send us an email and we'll send those spreadsheets for you. There's another part of this, like a cost of ownership is the managing risk. Well, you can see that sometimes managing risk is very hard. Everybody is finding in terms of the security, right? I mean, like I think we all know that because of security risk at Target, the CEO lost their job, right? And it's not unknown, and the market share of the Target is having difficulty, right? And the more market shares are going to Amazon and other places because of that Target vulnerability, right? So when you bring a technology inside the company, then you start seeing that okay, there's a risk factor for my business that which I needed to take care of it, right? And those risks, again, you start looking at it. I have put it like vendor viability, control on technical architecture, data production. Like you guys can read it. It's nothing new. But the idea is that if something is going to be difficult in terms of the risk, then you have to put a factor on the cost of ownership to see that whether that goes right or wrong, right? So it's not that what risk you provide, it is yours to decide what risk is on my architecture, right? So suppose if I implement an architecture on Hadoop bare metal and rest of my things are on the cloud, then all of a sudden I'm starting the risk of, like risk of creating that network, right? Somebody's, like trying to hack that network, somebody trying to do something else with it, right? Or I take a vendor today which may not exist in 2 years from now, and what will be the cost of moving together or moving out, right? So when you take a newer technology, these things are always, like again, this will be your educated guess. You don't know, but this will be your educated guess. And my, like part of working into this last, like all these gray hairs is to consider these things. You will do a much better and successful implementations if you consider these parts. So here's one thing we did is that we took our spreadsheet and we kind of added some of these. So, like took some input of 1500 terabytes of average monthly SDFS with peak of 100, growth of 20 like that, right? And then we kind of look through the 36 months period and say that, okay, let's try to see and that how, and the idea here is not to really pinpoint and say that this one is better than others and others is less than this. The idea there is to introduce you with the process. So when you go back and you are trying to put this technology inside, you should do this exercise. So that's the one thing if you want to remember from here is to do this exercise. Don't run away from it because it is going to help you to implement and get more resource to you. So here you will see that I considered no risk and then like looked at this sample numbers, and based on that with whatever cost we put that in, we saw that Hadoop as a service is coming up a little bit, attractive in terms of the cost than on-premise or EMR or distribution on EC2. But these are the numbers what we have put in. You put your numbers, you try to figure it out that what works for your company, and you get a graph. But the idea is to get a graph. Sure. Which one?
The distinction between Hadoop as a service and Amazon EMR.
Oh, yeah. The Hadoop as a service is that somebody is monitoring it because Amazon don't provide you the system administrators. Amazon doesn't provide you the, like DBAs of the world. The Amazon doesn't provide you monitoring of those things. So as a cost, if you look at it, those are the costs which you will incur yourselves when, like when you are doing it yourself. So that's the distinctions we are applying to. And then here's a risk part that what we are taking, and we are saying that if we take a, like a viability, or vendor viability, and then, some of these ratings you can see is that based on that, you kind of put your risk factor and you can put your weight. Right? It's not a rocket scientist. I mean, it just put some weight and put some risk factor, and you see that what is most important to you. Maybe like control on technical architecture is most important to you, right? And maybe that's the 100% weightage you want to provide. So do something, provide those things, and see. And the reasoning we were doing is to show you that and the same thing we did for the IT side, that if we are doing internally, and if we part that out, try to remember this graph and try to compare this graph, this one, right? You see here, you see Hadoop as a service is getting a little bit, attractive, and you go on here, and you see that, oh, it is coming same as on-premise. What it means? What it means is that you have started considering more things about business, your business, than just the technology, right? So that part you should understand that I don't know if you guys read a new not survey but a study on last year Hadoop usage, and you will find that most of the places where Hadoop are being used is to support the current business process of the company. And like people talk about that, okay, these are the different data items, these are the different data source, we are going to use all of these, but at the end the company what have used, they are using on the bread and butter data of theirs what they have, right, what they understand, right. And so all of those data, if your technology is going to work on it, it is going to tangle, it is going to mess with your business process, and that will create a risk for you, right. So when you look at your total cost of ownership, don't avoid your risk. And when you put your risk means you are trying to understand your business process. When you are trying to understand the business process, your business functions is going to appreciate you more. And when your business functions appreciates you more, you will get more resources to apply the technology. Right? So that's the kind of a cycle we have seen. And again, this is an experience just for the Hadoop side. It is an experience from the ERP things we implemented 30 years back. This is any things with all the client server things we did, and now we are kind of looking through this big data things too, right? So anyway, that was the idea of me coming here and then trying to share some of my experience. Steve is going to take the part 2, and after that we will give 10 minutes to ask any questions, or we will, if there is more questions, then we will stay outside and then help you out. Okay? But anytime if you have any questions, send us an email. It is in the slides. Okay.
Thanks, Santosh. And again, I'm Steve Ackley with Altascale, and by the way, we are hiring. How's that, Rick? Right on. I was asked to give that commercial. So really I want to go through some of those, we had some specifics there about the deployment options, and I want to talk about what those are and kind of when and why you should at least consider those. I mean, at the end of the day, we kind of went round and round on this a lot when we were putting these together because, ultimately this is a decision you all have to make in terms of what is best for you and your company and where you see yourselves going. Really, we think you ought to take about a 3-year outlook, and where do you see yourselves going in the next 3 years? So on-prem, which is the way the majority of Hadoop is. Well, I don't want to say the majority. It's the way a lot of the kind of enterprise Hadoop is being used today. Well-defined use cases with a very demonstrated ROI. The applications are already developed and tuned. You've got an IT team that doesn't just know Java and Linux, but they're very experienced, and able to manage and maintain Hadoop, along with, so you've got the OpEx side of the house, you've got the, you folks, really smart people that are able to manage it, and you've got, hardware that's on some kind of a leased program that you're going to be able to upgrade, and you're going to be able to, expand it. You can over provision, you can burst, you can do all the things that are required. So you've got the sufficient number of nodes to really kind of, be able to handle that. So, whether we're not making any commercials here for whether whatever distro you choose to run, Cloudera, MapR, Hadoop, do-it-yourself Apache, that's all up to you. But this is kind of a typical on-prem company profile. Again, a good-sized global 2,000 enterprise. Big data itself is a kind of strategic part of kind of what you do. Typically, we've found that you've got at least one, but a set of data scientists on staff who kind of need they need the Hadoop environment to really basically do their analytics. That's kind of why it's there. At the end of the day, it's about the outcome. It's about what are you, are you able to, make your hypotheses, apply the analytics to it, and get that outcome? And the best way to do that is the way that you've chosen to do it, in this case on-prem. So it's definitely an enterprise adoption and committed IT resources to really kind of, support it. There is the entire, there is the whole stack that we all know of Hive, Pig, Uzi, could be Flume, HTTPFS, et cetera. That whole stack, you've got kind of a committed set of folks that are kind of into that. They're into that life. You might have a committer on staff or something like that. So that's, I won't kind of beat that horse to death, because I think a lot of you kind of know that one. So now. But now getting to HAS, as it's called, Hadoop as a service, there really is a continuum. And the continuum goes like this. There's a set of places to run Hadoop as a service where the vendors manage the hardware. There's a continuum where the vendors install Hadoop, and then there's a set where the vendors manage Hadoop. And by the way, that was to your question. That's really how we differentiated them, in particular, showing EMR versus kind of Hadoop as a real service. So, that's, and the way we differentiate that, by the way, is that's really kind of more, we're viewing that as more either PaaS, either platform or infrastructure as a service. That's really more kind of the category that we're putting, for us, that we're putting EMR in, hugely used, but there's really not any management piece that they're doing on top of that. You're spinning up your cluster. They're not doing that for you. So that's the difference. So in the use case of where the vendors manage the hardware, really here are the kinds of organizations that should be thinking of that as your key option. So you want to create a small cluster for a short period of time. A short period of time, by the way, could be an hour. It could be that short of a period of time. Training, software dev purposes, really just maybe some tests, something that you want to kind of try out. Kind of perfect for that short-term processing need. Absolutely next to no internal capacity to support it. This is something where you're really first kind of tipping your, kind of toe in the water, and not an IT organization that can install it. You don't have the ability to maintain and operate Hadoop. No ability, we say broken jobs, no availability to fix, say, like where a node might go down, things might break, and the data might kind of fall back into wherever it was, and you spin it up again. But that's not going to kill you, because this isn't something that you're depending on. So a little kind of obvious there. And then again, where the vendor installs Hadoop, this is kind of more what some people refer to this as kind of as managed Hadoop, or Hadoop as Hadoop more kind of as a managed service. And there's a number of companies that offer this today, where you may have, again, it's a little bit more short term in your need, or small scale in the requirement. Applications can be more bursty, because these kind of companies that do this, they build in a little bit more elasticity. They will say that they will over provision, so it makes that more of an option. That you're getting to where you may have a IT organization that can operate the hardware and software stack, so they can manage that, because the cluster needs to scale. And again, we say fix broken jobs. Again, could be nodes that are broken. But you don't really need to tailor the hardware to your specific requirements. And then you get to where the vendors actually kind of not only off-prem in the cloud, but the vendor is indeed kind of not only the vendor in this case is monitoring your jobs for you. They're managing Hadoop. In many cases, they're actually running the jobs. So they're actually spinning up the environment that includes a lot of the kind of core Apache applications that I talked about: Pig, Hive, Uzi, HTTPFS, and then there might be other kind of Foundry applications that they also may be running for you. Who knows if it's Impala, Hue, Spark, Scoop, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of the things that are all being talked about, Stinger, a whole lot of different. If it's a real-time SQL query engine, if it's a whole lot of different things, they're setting that up for you. And so it's for an organization that, typically doesn't have an IT organization that can do that, or they have an IT organization that can do that, but they really want to have somebody else, be the place where that's maintained and operated. So they don't have an organization to maintain and operate it, or that, hardware and software stack. So in this sense, you're really making that kind of strong, kind of SaaS, that decision to kind of, very much offload this, offload kind of all of the operations of that to the cloud, and where what you really are just wanting is a place to store your data and merely run your programs. And so this is kind of the extreme side of that. You don't have the IT hardware infrastructure that's required, nor does your company want to make that, that CapEx investment, because you want that to be someplace else that you can, in effect, rent that. And the other thing is on the OpEx side. Again, this is a place where a company has, made that investment in in kind of the smart operational expertise to do all of this, so that you haven't. So you're also looking for something that's persistent in this case. So something that's always on, always available, whether it's whatever the kind of storage environment is, it's always there and available. Whatever the compute environment is, it's always there and available. So something that's always on, 7/24. And in this case, this would be some kind of a managed service provider that's handling all the aspects of this. And they actually, and in this case, you're saying they need to manage this to an SLA, because I'm not going to do this. It's going to be my job if they don't do this. And they may even offer it on hardware that's that quote unquote optimized for Hadoop in terms of the networks, the network stack on that. So that's really kind of our core. We have we do, as Sancho said, we have a spreadsheet that kind of goes through very, very specifically. You put a few numbers in, and it will actually compare and contrast for you. So send us a note, and we'll get that to any one of you. It's pretty complex, but it will if you put your data in, it will let you know what your total cost of ownership is, whether you've got the data for your hardware, or whether you've got the data that says, I'm going to run this somewhere else. So we've got the data to do those kind of comparisons, because, like Sancho said, it's something like when he and I were first talking about this, the fact that at HP they didn't determine that what PeopleSoft costed them until 10 years after they actually deployed it. TCO is something a lot of people bandy the term about, but it's tough to kind of come up with what it actually is. But we've got a pretty we think comprehensive list of the things you should be considering. Questions, comments? Yeah. It's right here.
Those are the emails you can send to either one of us. We'll be happy to send that out. What else? Has to be some question coming up in your mind. No? We were so good that you don't have any question?
All right, great.
Yeah? Sorry?
You are the only one offering this kind of a service,
No, there are.
So when you say you mean me. You mean so you might mean Alta Scale. I'm not up here to make this isn't really supposed to be, and this is not meant to be a commercial. There is a continuum, as we said, in terms of vendors that offer it, but in terms of somebody that's going to actually manage and run Hadoop for you, yes.
Yeah, other things to look at it, that basic idea is to see that do you have the expertise yourselves inside house, right? So that's one part, right? The other factor which comes in is that what is your timeline, right? So maybe sometimes there is a, for an example, if you take Intuit, right? They hire like 3,500 call center people every year. For 6 months, right? So if you are trying to apply anything there, then there's a timeline involved with it, right? So you wanted to see if it is something that you have to do it quicker, then maybe you want to see this Hadoop as a service and get that out too. So, different factors, it's all about your use case, that what you want to use.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Hadoop as a service, it's the assumption that I, as a big data user, would come with a big script or a jar file running as on your service. And then I guess the question is, if my IT organization has no understanding of Hadoop, how am I able to use your service to optimize the performance of my application?
Yeah.
Oh, so I'll answer that. So the assumption is with Hadoop as a service on the side of where there is no management, the answer is yes. That is what the yeah, that is what the assumption would be. With Hadoop, where it's more of a managed service, they are managing it for you, no, that would actually be not the assumption. The assumption would be that they would be the ones supplying Hive for you. As a matter of fact, they may even say to you, hey, as between Hive 12 and Hive 13, we've got both. Do you want to test either one of them? They might ask you to kind of run your job and maybe compare it. Why don't you compare this, by the way, to Impala? And let's do a wall clock test and see how fast it is, and ask you to work with them on that. On your question on the IT staff, I want to make a distinction between IT and data scientists, because you may not have the IT staff to do it, but you indeed may have the data scientists that actually want to do the analysis, and that's who it's meant for. So it's meant for the data scientists who aren't the people that kind of know, not just Java and Linux, but Hadoop itself, because they don't have to know it, because they're saying we're the experts, we already know it, so let us do it for you. So that's a good question.
Yeah, and just to follow up on that, is that think about your use case, right? So in your use case, if you want to have a subsection of your use case which is being served by a Hadoop, you can kind of abstract that, put as a Hadoop as a service. But if that data is again going back into your enterprise to be used inside different business processes, then more and more knowledge of Hadoop is needed, right? And so what Hadoop as a service will give you is that it is helping you with a time as a market, time to market, and then you can use that time to build some expertise inside it, right? But at this time, if you try to find somebody who could really troubleshoot your Hadoop from the performance perspective, tell us that who do you find? Because it is very limited resource, and there are only like less than 100 people who kind of are moving around, right? And so those things you get in a Hadoop as a service is that you don't have to worry that because of your technology, your implementation will not be successful, right? So because that's the part to say it. Yes.
Another question.
You were saying how setting up the network is important, and it makes me think about like a cloud service. If an organization is thinking about more and more data and even real time, and as that grows,
Yes.
I mean, how would that come into your thinking about the long term?
Yes. So, it's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you look at your now you are putting your enterprise architect hat, right? So that's how you are trying, and that's what I was encouraging all of us to kind of think about it. So now, again, I'll give you an example of Intuit. They were a desktop software company, right? And we, like 8 or 10 of us, we were hired like 10 years back to kind of keep helping the company to go towards be a software as a service company. And now you see that after 7, 8 years that Intuit is getting recognized as a software as a service company. So it's a long journey. It's not just one incident or one like traction what you will do. But when you get it, it's very beautiful. It's like if you look at it, we have HP Global Payroll implemented like almost 15 years back. That thing is still running and saving money for the HP.
So
right?
could I jump
Yeah.
in though? You mentioned something about the network. So, in particular, just networking itself is changing, pretty quickly. Even at the, as you know, there's a lot going on with software-defined networks at the layer 2 level. And, you're going to see service providers, cloud providers are going to be very early adopters of that. Companies like VMware, Cisco doing a lot on that now. And that's not cheap. And you're going to find service providers adopting SDN at a speed of which kind of just regular old companies aren't going to be able to do that. And so they're going to be able to pass on those kind of economies of scale to customers that choose to use their cloud service. And it's going to kind of be maybe even a game changer in terms of cloud being able to provide things in the cloud.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the,
You had another, there was a question, by the way, back here. Yeah. Yes.
yes, it did.
Hardware is typically, behind the firewall of whoever the service provider is.
And another part, to get you more answer on it, that typically these days, every service provider is taking the Amazon or Rackspace and others, because building data center means they will pass those costs to you, right? So the data center component, if you look at it, even those who are providing you Hadoop as a service, they are not building data centers. They are building the value add on top of data center, because those data centers are available to you anyway. Yes, yeah.
How do I pass data from one location to the server somewhere?
Sure.
How are we gaining the
So if you look at the performance, performance is at different levels, right? So if you look at it, your core data, right? So let's say you are getting you are a service company, right? And you get this, like service data from all of your machines throughout the world. Like Varian. Varian is a company in Palo Alto. They create medical devices, and then from more medical devices, they are getting the sensors. Those data are coming back to it, right? So now those data are not inside your enterprise. You have to move that data anyway to some place, right? You collect
goes
it
to
to
the
the
cloud.
S3. And if you look at it, especially at Amazon, if you look at S3, they have really improved the like reliability of those and performance of those. So you can take, like hundreds of terabytes of data, put it on S3, and if the cost goes more, you can take that data, put it on Glacier. That's even less expensive, right? And so all those parts are there, but as in, like architecture, you have to kind of put them together and work through it. And just to finish up on your question, that the whole reason this Hadoop as a service you want to do is that if your data is coming from different places, there's no point of taking those data already on your overloaded network and try to do something there, versus take that data outside and get them compute somewhere else, and then only create a VLAN or something in between your a cloud and your data center, right? So that whole thing is kind of your private cloud, and then move that data only the usable data or the metrics data which you want to integrate with other business process. So see, you kind of, by architecting this, you are able to take the cost of upgrading your network just because of this out of this equation. So. Sure.
You had one of the risk factors was IT. How do you handle the security aspect?
The security will go into your loss of intellectual property, right? So if you lose that as an intellectual property because of security, what's the risk you take? Maybe there are certain data where they will not let it go anywhere, right? And for them, then, like that risk factor is so high that you just don't want to go anywhere else but to have that secured, locations. And like Feds, when they print money, they will not offload that to anybody. Yeah.
They offer this Hadoop
The security in the cloud environment becomes
Sure.
a shared responsibility. And so definitely the Hadoop as a service provider will provide you the best practices. But think about that they can provide you and say that, hey, make sure that you do this, like certificates installed on the client machine.
Yeah, you should hold
yeah.
your vendor, you should hold your vendor to to the bar that you need them to be yourself.
Yeah.
A question you asked, how many on-prem, Hadoop clusters are actually running Kerberos? We ask that all the time. It's next to none.
Yeah.
So you should at least expect that from your, you should expect that level from your, your Hadoop as a service, managed service vendor. And then there's higher levels for that, SOC 2, 3 compliance. For some people, it might be PCI. I mean, there's bars that you need to get to that you ought to be able to, you ought to make sure that they're kind of meeting those kind of requirements.
Yeah, but think about that I just was saying that you hold them accountable, but also approach that as a shared responsibility. Because security is a shared responsibility no matter wherever you go. Even inside your organizations, when you put the bare metal, there also you have a shared security because data cannot just stay, like within those firewalls.
So thank you. We have the red light.
Yeah.
We're being told to end. So.